Hello everyone, in today's discussion, we are diving into a strategic approach for capitalizing on your opponent's error of prematurely deploying their queen. Consider it a mistake because, when you're familiar with the proper response, you'll swiftly position yourself advantageously right from the opening phase. Let's focus on the wayward queen attack, initiated with the sequence e4, e5, queen h5. While this is indeed a recognized opening, it's generally regarded as a suboptimal choice. The underlying concept centers on white targeting your undefended e5 pawn. If you happen to make the common novice error of playing g6, you'll unwittingly expose yourself to consequences. White can exploit this situation by capturing your pawn with a check, subsequently proceeding to capture your cornered rook in the ensuing move. At this juncture, your position is already compromised, and you find yourself at a disadvantage. In this situation, there are two main ideas to consider. Something like knight to c6, they could follow up with bishop to c4, setting up a threat of checkmate. This is known as scholar's mate, a quick checkmating sequence that can catch unprepared opponents off guard. However, if you avoid falling for these tricks, white's options become limited. I will guide you through key concepts and strategies to handle early queen attacks effectively. The primary concept you should focus on when facing an early queen sortie is gaining tempo against the queen. To accomplish this, aim to attack the queen with multiple pieces, ideally all four of your minor pieces, knights and bishops. I will provide an example shortly to illustrate this concept. By pressuring the queen while developing your own pieces, you can achieve a favorable position. Regarding the specific position you mentioned, the pawn on c7 is under attack. While a move like knight to c6 seems logical to defend the pawn, there's an intriguing alternative that I'll explain shortly. Imagine you've defended the pawn and your opponent responds with a move like knight to c3. At this point, you can play knight to f6. This move serves a dual purpose. You're developing a piece and simultaneously putting pressure on your opponent's queen. This strategy is powerful because you're essentially gaining a free move. Your opponent is compelled to address the threat to their queen, which hinders their ability to develop their other pieces. Let's explore how this unfolds. Suppose your opponent makes the mistake of relocating their queen to h3. This provides you with the opportunity to play the move d5. By advancing this pawn, you not only continue your piece development, but also maintain pressure on the opponent's queen. If white responds by moving their queen to f3, you can capitalize on this by playing bishop to g4. This move achieves two goals: you're further developing your bishop, and once again, you're pressuring your opponent's queen. This approach sets up an ideal scenario where you're systematically developing your pieces while keeping your opponent on the defensive. Their queen's repeated movements hinder their ability to establish a strong piece setup, while you steadily enhance your position. As a result, you'll have your entire army poised for action while your opponent's pieces remain confined to their back rank. This can lead to advantageous tactics, such as in the example where your move exposes a fork. Remember, this strategic concept is not limited to countering the wayward queen attack. It applies to any situation where your opponent brings out their queen early. Always consider how you can engage their queen with your four minor pieces to create a favorable position for yourself. Let's revisit a critical point that some players mistakenly overlook. While the strategy involves developing your pieces and attacking the opponent's queen, it's vital to remain attentive to basic threats and avoid falling into tactical traps. Now, shifting back to the position you've described. In this context, playing knight to c6 and blindly following the strategy without considering potential checkmate threats can lead to your downfall. Therefore, alongside your piece development and queen pressure, it's crucial to stay vigilant about tactical vulnerabilities. Returning to the position at hand, the move g6 emerges as the optimal choice. By doing this, you not only gain a tempo against the queen, but also preemptively block its potential intrusion on f7, thwarting a checkmate threat. Frequently, your opponent might attempt the queen's advance once more, and you can confidently respond with knight to f6. This move accomplishes two goals. It halts the queen's progress and advances your own piece development. In situations where your opponent stubbornly persists by moving the queen to b3, lining up on f7, there are two prudent approaches you can take. The simpler option involves playing queen to e7, effectively defending the critical f7 square. You can then proceed to develop your bishop, castle, and establish a favorable position. Alternatively, a more intricate but creative move is knight to d4. Here, you allow your opponent to capture with check. However, after king to e7, your king remains safe and the opponent's queen is now under attack. This tactic can catch your opponent off guard. If they try to protect their bishop with queen to c4, you can counter with b5. At this juncture, their queen is running out of safe squares, and you can eventually capture their bishop with an advantageous position. This comprehensive strategy effectively handles the wayward queen attack, combining piece development, queen pressure, and tactical awareness to create a strong position for yourself. Another crucial concept to grasp when employing this strategy is that, at times, it's acceptable to sacrifice pawns in the process of developing your pieces, attacking the opponent's queen, and gaining tempos. Frequently, when opponents bring out their queen early, they may attempt to capture your pawns with their queen. Surprisingly, allowing these captures can still lead to a more favorable position for you. Let me illustrate this with a pertinent example. Consider the move knight to f6, which is sometimes referred to as the kitty counterattack, although the origin of this name is unclear. The underlying principle remains the same: you're developing a piece, attacking the queen, and creating a tempo. Suppose your opponent takes your pawn on d5. In response, you can play bishop to e7, further developing a piece and maintaining pressure on their queen. At this point, your opponent might choose to play d3, aiming to consolidate their position. Here, you can proceed with your piece development and queen pressure strategy. Most commonly, they will move their queen back to g3. By now, you've managed to bring out three of your pieces, while white's pieces remain largely inactive on their starting squares. Continuing the example, you can play knight to d4, introducing a powerful fork threat against their king and rook. White's options to defend against this are limited. If they play knight to a3, capturing the pawn, you can simply take their knight. Subsequently, your knight can advance, setting up another fork threat. Alternatively, if white defends with king to d1, you can seize the opportunity to play d5, opening up the center and maintaining your piece development. While they capture the pawn on d5, you're steadily bringing your pieces into play, positioning yourself advantageously. An important lesson from this example is that even if you sacrifice pawns to achieve your development and tempo goals, the resulting position can be highly advantageous. By adhering to the principle of developing your pieces and pressuring the opponent's queen, you can potentially attain a commanding position, as demonstrated in this scenario. As you follow this strategic approach, there will come a pivotal moment in the game where your grasp of basic tactics becomes essential. A prime example of this is when you're confronted with a tactical opportunity. In such cases, you need to be able to see tactics like trades or forks to maintain your advantage. Let's revisit a specific instance to illustrate this point. Imagine you've been diligently developing your pieces and pressuring your opponent's queen. At a certain juncture, you may recognize a tactic, such as a trade that leads to a fork. In this scenario, your ability to identify and execute this tactic is crucial. For instance, consider the position where your knight is placed strategically to support a fork. By allowing your opponent to capture a pawn, you create an opportunity to bring your rook into play, gain an additional tempo on the queen, and subsequently exploit weaknesses in your opponent's position. However, exercise caution. Always ensure that your tactical moves are well supported and defended. For example, in the case of bringing out your bishop to a square like e6, be mindful of potential threats to your knight. If your knight is not adequately protected, A move like rook to b8 might lead to a loss of material. To mitigate this risk, establish proper defensive measures. Prioritize moves that safeguard your pieces before launching into offensive actions. For instance, playing queen to d6 before bishop to e6 ensures that your knight is secure and prepares the way for effective piece development and tactics. Be cautious of potential tactical traps, but in general, I find it effective to let the opponent's queen capture pawns. This allows you to move your rook, gain tempo, and create an aggressive position. Opponents who bring out the queen early to target pawns can often be at a disadvantage. Now, it's time for a puzzle. In the given position, it's white's turn, and you need to find the best move for white. Share your answers in the comments, and let's see how many of you can solve it correctly. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with future videos. Take a moment to check out the other videos appearing on your screen right now. Thank you for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Take care and peace.